Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada, and I am so thrilled to be joining the Global Stampin' Video Hop design team. So this month we are featuring embossing and all things embossing. There's dry embossing, there's heat embossing, we're doing the Joseph's coat technique, and I can't wait to show you this. So I have gone ahead and prepped a few of the pieces. I've got some stitched rectangles, I've got some more stitched rectangles, and I've gone ahead and die cut this piece and embossed it using the Cobwebs embossing folder. Got a couple other pieces of cardstock here. All of the dimensions will be below. Joseph's coat technique is quite a messy technique, so I would recommend working on some scrap paper and protecting your work surface. Let's start. We're just going to highlight this because if you don't do this part, you really don't see too much of the spider webs. And I'm not applying any pressure here. I'm basically just running it across the cardstock. So you can see what a difference that has made. They legit look like spider webs now. And I should mention, my goal here was to just use one bundle so that this is easy for you to replicate. So I am using the Banner Year bundle. I feel like this is kind of a sleeper in the current mini catalog, but so many possibilities. I mean, you can see here we've got Halloween, we've got Christmas, we've actually got a fair amount of Halloween actually. This is why I chose this set. We've got a pumpkin, we've got a spider web, we've got a bat. So those are my 3 panels. We've also got that adorable little boo. It's just fantastic. And then you add the Pick-a-Punch banner ends. Oh, and you're saving 10%. So it's really a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. So now that that part is done, we'll set that aside. We are going to do some embossing on this piece. We'll keep that one out. We can set these aside. So what we need are our sponge daubers, and I did change this up a tiny bit in that I'm using Highland Heather this time instead of Gorgeous Grape. So each color has its own sponge dauber, and you can color your cardstock before you die cut it, or you can do it afterwards like I'm doing. If you take a drop of glycerin, put it in the lid, put it on a clear block. I'm just going to actually put a little bit on my finger because I don't want to get my granny apple green in there. This will help it spread easier. You may need more than one application. It helps the sponge to glide easier. This is really only the second time I've tried this, so it's something I'm gonna have to play with to perfect. But perfection's highly overrated, right? So, using the Banner Year set, I'm going to get the pumpkin, the spiderweb, and the bat. Now, I will tell you, I did not realize this right away. It actually took me an embarrassing amount of time to realize that this is the top of the pumpkin, but I used it on my last sample and I didn't like it. There's also the jack-o'-lantern face, but you can see this is a solid image, so we would have to emboss this and then do like a black embossing on top, so it wasn't going to work with this technique. So I'm going to use my embossing buddy. And let's start with the pumpkin and we'll work our way over. let's get messy. You can use any color, doesn't have to be black, but because this is Halloween, let's go memento. And it's kind of nice with the stitching because you can see it didn't fill in where the Mango Melody is in the stitching. So the final step, because this would leave quite a mess, is you want to take a clean or dry cloth, and holding on to part of this, you're going to wipe off the excess ink. And the beauty of this is it's an ink resist, so we don't lose that purple, we don't lose that green, and we don't lose that orange. And you can see that if you've got a little bit of difference in the way that you've blended, like if you have spots on your cardstock that weren't as dark, you kind of get an ombre effect, and it's so cool. So we're gonna get rid of this messy sheet now. And we're going to emboss our background. So this is something you're probably going to want to do for a special someone in your life. You're not probably going to want to do like 100 of these, or for each and every trick-or-treater. You could most definitely modify this so that it is like a treat thing instead of a card, because let's be honest, how many of us give Halloween cards? But you could modify this to be part of a treat bag. So I am just stamping this all over the border. I actually just did it as a border on the first one, and then found that it looked kind of funny that it stopped, so we will cover the entire card. And this is again clear embossing powder. So now we are ready to start assembling. So we can take that and glue it on down. I like to use glue when I've heat embossed because I feel like it will help remove any of that warping from the cardstock. And I do find less warping when I heat it from the back. I also do it that way so that my powder doesn't blow off. In case you're wondering, I know most people are like, why do you hold it upside down? So this is liquid glue, so I'm just going to hold on to it for a few seconds to help it set in place. You could use dimensionals, but because this is so thin, I just found that these strips were easier. So now I'm just going to glue these ones down, and I think I'm going to use the same layout that I did before. Maybe I'll switch these two around. I just realized the reason I have the spider web over here is so that when we put our tag on, the spider is kind of on the webs. See what I was thinking? And this is actually not from this set. There are a few different spider options in the new mini catalog. So if you don't have banner year and you're not planning on getting it, you won't be able to replicate my card exactly, but I'm sure you can come up with some great ideas. But if you are looking for a spider, Hallows Night Magic has these two creepy spiders, and then it has the die for the larger one. But my favorite spider is from Little Treats. It's this one here, and when you die cut it, it puts a little pattern on the spider's back. And I love this one using the black glitter paper, but we're going to use the one from a different set because I'm going to use it on the inside as well. So I'd highly suggest dry fitting your pieces before you adhere them so that you know your spacing is good. Doesn't have to be perfect, but because we're using stitched rectangles or rectangles period, it will be obvious if they are crooked or if there's more space between some than others, which is kind of what we have going on right now. But the sentiment strip is going over there, so I'm not all that concerned. So I'm going to use a piece of the basic gray to do my sentiment. That's what I used on this one. Mostly because it's going to bring in that same shade from the Boo. But I'm going to cut this down first. So when we're using this punch, we can do 1/2 inch, 3/4 inches, or 1 inch. This sentiment is a little bit too big for any of those, so I'm just gonna eyeball that there, and then we'll trim it down further if need be. And because we are embossing on a darker cardstock, I'm definitely going to use my embossing buddy. We'll bring in that Happy Haunting stamp. And I'm using white embossing powder this time. So we'll get that powder while it's still wet. And then, you ready for the bonus set that I'm bringing in? This one is such a fabulous add-on. It's called Festive Corners, and I got it for the spider web and this spooky alone. Everything is just so fantastic, but look at this little string of lights. And then you've got Most Wonderful Time of the Year, Love You Lots, Merry. But I also like this one with the Trick or Treat, Happy Halloween. But it had to be the spider and the web that I got this for. So that is the spider that we're using. Just gonna stamp that. And I want kind of the web that he's hanging from to be at the top of the banner. That might actually be the perfect height. Now, it's not going to fit in there as is. We need to get it down to at least 1 inch, but in order for the cardstock strips to fit in there, they have to be just a smidge shy of the 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, or 1 inch mark. So I'm gonna take off just a smidge off the bottom. I don't want to cut off the spider's legs. Wouldn't be scary to have a spider with no legs. And then here, we're not gonna quite go to like 15/16. We're gonna go a sliver shy of 1 inch, just a sliver. And I find that this helps to line it up, and we'll get a perfect banner every time. But I have one more trick for that. So I want to do an arrow on this end and banner on this end. So let's trim off just a little bit. So So I'm gonna pop that in there, and you can see it's like the triple banner punch. It goes in there and you guide it, but then turn it over to make sure that you have approximately the same amount on both sides. And that will give you a perfect banner every time, because I do find it slides just a little bit in here. Let's take off a little bit more. So it keeps it on track when it's back here, but as the banner gets shorter, it can be hard to line it up. So just making sure that you have the same amount of room on both sides helps. That didn't take a whole lot off, but that's okay. We'll take more off the end. One more time. So slide it in there, keeping it straight, and then turn it over to make sure you've got about the same amount on both sides. And when I'm talking about both sides, I'm talking about seeing about the same amount of those holes on both sides. So there, that's much better. And then on this one, I'm gonna turn it the other way just to make sure that I'm not cutting my sentiment. So pop that in there. And make sure you've got the same amount of space on both sides. I hope that makes sense, because you can't see the holes on that one. But that is a perfect banner because I flipped it around to make sure that it was going to sit properly. So we are going to use a couple of the black dimensionals just up to about here, because we're going to glue that part down. We could use the foam strips, just a little piece, but because this is already another layer of cardstock, it will pop it up just a little bit higher in the front. And you don't have to get that particular, but I know that would bug me, so. And then I put glue there because this is already popped up, so if we pop that up, it would be uneven. Little too much. You know what? This is a little too low, so let's stack them on top of each other. And I will tell you, it took me quite a while to get on this black dimensional train, but I'm on it now. Okay, that is the perfect height. So that is the front. Let me know in the comments below which one you prefer. Do you like the gray tone on tone, or do you like it with the black accents in there? They're both just a little bit different. And then on the inside, we're going to bring in that festive corners again. Not going to adhere it yet, but I want to use that spider web that I told you about. And just so that it's not too stark, we are going to use smoky slate. If I use memento in here, it tends to be a little overpowering, and then if this is being given with a sentiment inside or some kind of writing, it gets lost. And you could even stamp that off if you want. And now what I'm gonna do is ink up that spider, but I'm not gonna ink up his whole little web that he's hanging from, because I don't want it to be double thickness. And it's kind of hard to see through there. But that is our cute little sentiment. And you could use the spooky from here, which might just fit down there. Not quite. Or you could use a sentiment that's in here. So we have happy haunting and boo, but there's also a treat so sweet. And I think that is what I'm going to use, because I haven't used it yet. I thought about using it on the sample, but I did not. So let's just put it at the top there. There we go. So we can just adhere that now, and I'm going to use some Stampin' Seal. And I know people say you don't need the check mark, it's not like fast views, but I do find that that helps me get it going easier every time. And this would be great on the envelope as well. But I have taken up enough of your time, so please in the comments below let me know if you prefer the black card base with the black frame or the basic gray with the smoky slate frame. I know which one I prefer, but I want your opinion. And if this was your first time here, I hope that you will hit that subscribe button below. And I hope to see you soon, my crafty friends. Bye.